It's great to see you all today because I've been away. I have been in California visiting friends over the past week or so, or actually a little longer than that. And whenever I go on a trip, there's always two things absolutely I will take with me. Number one is my knitting. Because knitting, whenever you're sitting around in an airport or the flight is delayed or things don't go right, you just take out your knitting and you focus on the knitting and everything turns out all right. So I always take my knitting, and then I always take a book. So this year, or this time, I was thinking of a book. What book shall I take with me? Well, of course, it turns out that there's a book that has just come out that Oprah is participating in. Now, you know, if Oprah likes it and says it's good, it must be good. And the book is called Build the Life You Want. And she has done this really in collaboration with a gentleman who's a professor at Harvard, and he teaches a course on happiness. And the book is really, I just wasn't sure whether it was going to be just another, how would I say, sort of superficial book about how we should all be happy or whatever. And, or you know, what would make it really significant? And what makes it significant is that the material that this gentleman developed is all based on scientific studies. So it's not just a bunch of oh, we should all be happy. It is based on really factual studies of what makes people happy, and you know, there's just so much more information that we have. And from my own personal interests, or my own little, I guess, niche when it comes to spirituality and everything, is when spirituality is reflected in our real world and reflected in the world of science and facts, as well as what our own personal experience and our beliefs are. So the book, I would say, there's even a workbook that goes with it. If I didn't have so much on my plate, I would say, oh, we have to do a 6-week workshop on this. Maybe next year, maybe later on, I don't know. But it would be a great book to do that because it's on all different aspects of happiness. And I'm just going to share with you some of the main points that I got out of it as far as the connection between happiness and spirituality, because I was really surprised that at the end of this book, the whole emphasis was on love. And this is the word they use, you have to have a metaphysical outlook, which by that they mean look beyond just the physical. Ooh, does that sound familiar? And it's based all on many, many, many studies of thousands of people and so on and so forth. So very interesting book, and I highly recommend it. I wish I could share everything with you, and I already warned Lena, please wave your arm if I start talking too much. But there's a couple of points, really important points that I got out of it. And the first one, and I think probably one of the most important ones, is this. Happiness is an emotion. It is not a destination. So many of us are brought up in a culture where we think that happiness is a destination, thanks to religion and advertising. Religion, especially in our culture, especially the Christian religion. I'm saying this just as an observation. When I was a little girl and I was a refugee and I went to, there was a summer camp for missionaries who had left China because Mao Zedong's armies were coming down. And so in most cases they sent, the women and children out. And so we spent a summer on top of Lantau Mountain. And I have told you this song before, but this was the song that we learned. That was the promise of religion in general. This was, of course, a Baptist church song, but it was a song. And this is what we sang as 7-year-olds. Oh, the bells of hell go ting-a-ling-a-ling for you, not me. For me, the angels sing-a-ling-a-ling through all eternity. Oh, death, where is thy sting-a-ling-a-ling? Oh, grave, thy victory. Not ting-a-ling-a-ling, not sting-a-ling-a-ling, but sing-a-ling-a-ling for me. So, and I'm telling you, religion tends to paint this picture that there is a place that if we're good enough and we do all the right things, how do I say, I don't think that's the original intention of the creators of the particular religion, but there is a tendency of humanity to codify things and to say, well, if you do this, this, and this, then you will get this reward, happiness. And it's a place, and all our troubles are going to disappear. And then you get that translated right into the world of advertising. And I confess, I spent many years in the world of advertising. If you own this Imperial, or if you own the Lexus, you are going to have happiness. You're going to be in a place where your life is happy. Or how many of us have heard, oh, when I find the right partner, then my life will be a happy place. I will be happy. Or when I get the perfect job, I will be happy. And even look at metaphysical churches over the, especially back in the 80s, and sometimes even today. There is this whole thing of God wants you to be wealthy and healthy and have everything in the world. And so the whole point of religion is to be happy. And at the same time, I have to say, and give credit to the fact that in all religions, today, there are theologians who are working on a much more mature approach to religion and to spirituality than the things that, you know, slowly we are outgrowing. Because spirituality is not about being wealthy. It's not about having happiness all the time. It's a path. It's a path. And we can bring elements of happiness into our lives. But it's not about us being happy versus other people being unhappy, or happiness as a destination. So that is the first thing that I got out of this book, was that, and I just never thought of it that way before, but happiness is an emotion. It's not a destination. Now, is it okay to want to have more happiness in our lives? Absolutely. And he breaks down in this book, what are the real elements that bring us that deep sense of happiness into our lives that we could add more of? 3 things. The first is enjoyment. And he says that enjoyment is not just a fleeting, like looking at TikTok things for 5 minutes. It's not watching, it's the difference between watching a football game on a television and investing your money, buying the tickets, driving to Kansas City, walking up the stairs, sitting in a chair on a cold or breezy day and watching Kansas City beat somebody. And you know, that enjoyment requires an investment of time and effort. And too often in our society, we think enjoyment is just this little quickie thing, you know, just sitting down and watching something on TV, or just this quick little hit of enjoyment. He says true enjoyment requires investment of time and energy. So when we want to put more enjoyment in our lives, that's one way to look at it. The next thing that he says is an element of bringing more happiness or pleasure into our lives is satisfaction. And satisfaction is the thrill of accomplishing something you worked for. Something you worked for. And in our society, of course, it's all about go big or go home. That's where Tiny Habits comes in. It is amazing how just acknowledging the small, beautiful things of life, the little glimmers of life, the smile that you get unexpectedly from somebody, or getting a phone call from a child who's visiting a place that you aren't able to go to. Those little tiny things, small steps, and acknowledging, and how do I say, acknowledge that you accomplished those small steps. I think the people who really have the advantage in this particular area are those of us who are older. And those of us who have some disabilities of some sort, because there are so many more times in our life where it took that little bit of extra effort. to do something. It took a little bit of extra effort to go down the stairs and back up again and do all the laundry in one day. See? You know what I'm talking about. Okay. There's a lady who I'm working with right now who has muscular dystrophy. And I'm working with her as a tiny habits coach. And if she's setting new habits about wanting to go on new adventures or, how would I say, suddenly being able to get up out of her wheelchair and walk, she is, instead what she's doing is learning to cheer herself on for the little accomplishments and acknowledge how she's taking good care of herself every day. And to say, yes, I did that. You know, I did my exercises today. I took the pills that I need to take at such and such a time. I thanked my helper for helping me get out of bed and things like that. There's all kinds of places, small, tiny places in our lives where we can have that thrill of accomplishment. We just have to, you know, stop looking out there and start looking what's right in front of us. The next thing that he talks about that really creates a life that has lots of happiness in it as an emotion is purpose. When we have a sense of purpose, we can face challenges with hope and peace. When I hear about purpose, and some of us think, well, wait a minute, I can remember myself going on a 7-day vision quest out in the wilderness with whatever I had, the food on my back, and that was it for the, you know, no, we weren't allowed to bring in any kind of writing material or painting or anything like that. We had to just sit in the wilderness for 7 days to find our purpose or whatever. Not all of us have, and it was, for me, it was a very magical and mystical experience, but you know, not all of us have the opportunity to go and sit on top of a mountain and find our purpose. But Reverend Phyllis nailed it when she said, our purpose is real clear. It's to love, give, and serve. That's our purpose in whatever way we can do it. So there's a sense of purpose. And when we have that sense of purpose, we can have a sense of hope, things make more sense. And at the end of this book, that's what they really get into, is that, you know, to look beyond the physical. And that when we are able to look beyond the physical and we get into the spiritual, that's where we have the tools to handle life's challenges. Because life's challenges are always going to be there. It's not about finding happiness by buying a new car or a new outfit or a new boyfriend or a perfect job and all of that. So next, let's talk about unhappiness. It has a place in this world. How many of us have heard that expression? Well, I'll be happy. I'll finally be happy when I get rid of this and I get rid of that, or when I have this or when I have that. Happiness has its place too in this world. Without happiness, for one thing, we wouldn't survive. Without unhappiness, we would not survive. We have a thing in our brain that has been developed, and I've talked about this in almost every talk I've had in the past 2 years. There's part of our brain that is the searching, it's like a radar system that's looking for the things that it could be dangerous to us, you know? And unhappiness is often that little nudge that says, hey, watch out, there is something not right. And so there's a place in our world, or in our lives, for unhappiness. Without it, we wouldn't survive, because we would be walking right in front of a truck, for all we know, because we wouldn't be paying attention to those little urges in our brain. Without unhappiness, we wouldn't learn new things. I mean, we have a wonderful capacity as humans. We have things like regret and remorse, and they are the greatest teachers, because there's where we learn how we could do things differently. So there's another good reason for unhappiness to be present in our lives. And without unhappiness, we would never have the urge to explore new things, to create new things, to be new things. So unhappiness definitely has its place. And what Oprah says, and I think it sort of puts it all together, Emotions are signals. They're signals. They're signals to us. So the happiness ones, the happiness emotions, we can do things to create more of those happiness emotions if we want them. The sad emotions, the unhappy emotions, they're guides for us also. Both of them have a place in our lives. So then what happens with all of this, and what is the role of spirituality in all of this? What this book says is that it's looking beyond the physical and having a spiritual life that helps us to have hope, that helps us to give life meaning, that helps us to face life's challenges. And if there ever was a perfect example of that, it would be Sue Decatur Davis and how she lived her life. In fact, I think she was sent here to inspire all of us, that in the face of great challenges, there can be happiness, there can be delight, there can be smiles, there can be caring, there can be compassion, there can be kindness, which she showed. I mean, she was still running our social events right up in the last year where she was still quite ill. She definitely was a beautiful spirit for all of us. So one of the things that they say in this book, which I thought was very profound, is people go their whole lives wishing that they had faith, but not doing the work. It's one thing to come to church. It's one thing even better to come to church and be on time. Which is always, I mean, every time, I'm careening out of my apartment thinking, oh, I hope I get there on time. But they were saying, you know, doing the work is very simple things. It's like taking 15 minutes at the beginning of your day, reading something that's inspiring, being still and just listening to your thoughts, doing meditation, doing prayer work, whatever it is, but doing something every day. And he had a great idea. He said, start each day saying, I don't know what this day will bring, but I will love others and allow myself to be loved. There was a great saying that I also read in another book. It was about a Zen student who came to his teacher and said, what does it mean to do the work? Because you know, you hear this a lot especially in the world of consciousness and spiritual change. You know, you have to do the work. So this student came to his Zen teacher and said, oh master, what is the work? And here's what he said, it's so perfect. The work is to stop waiting for other people to change. That's the work. That is the work. So in closing, I'd just like to share just 2 paragraphs from this book that I think capture the essence of the message about spirituality and what it has to do with happiness. And here it is. All of the pillars of happiness are about love. Love for your family, love for your friends, love made visible by bringing your best self to work, and love for the divine through your transcendent journey. To become the teacher of what you have learned is then an abundant act of love towards everyone in your life. Because God waits for you every day at the gas station, at the office, in the grocery store, in the factory, in the workshop, in the fields, in the home, in all the immense panorama of work. Understand this well. There is something holy, something divine in the most ordinary situations, and it is up to each one of us to discover it.